got to do is call, and I'll be there. You've got a friend. Ain't it good to know that you've got a friend? I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is born. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptations come my way, when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
I've just some water and some more things. So you're awesome. I'm excited that there's some people here. Like,
Yeah, it's
I mean,
nice.
normally you've taught last year, right?
I helped with the sound last year.
Help with the sound. So
So I
you
was
saw
in,
how crowded it was. So people are
Facebook.
listening right now.
Bows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel, and every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way. Oh, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads and they tell me that I've changed. But something's lost and something's gained in living every day don't know life at all. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions that I recall. I really don't know life at all. Why are there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know they're wrong, wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning star? Somebody thought of that, and someone believed him, and look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing, and what do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling others and me.
Good evening, and welcome to the 8th Annual Night of Hope. My name's Jeff Kopitz, and I'm going to be your MC for tonight. Obviously, 2020 has been one crazy year, and it's pretty much guaranteed that by me being up here talking to you. As many of you know, the Night of Inspirational Speakers was the idea of my wife, Teresa. Teresa had a dream to create an event to share stories of inspiration and happiness. Her mom, Joan Garrow, had a positive attitude on life that she passed on to Teresa, and Teresa decided that this was a way for her to pass on her mom's legacy to all of you. We all face hardships and challenges, but this night was to show that through God's love and the support of family and friends, we will be able to work through these challenges. Sharing our stories will hopefully inspire others to work through their tough times. The Night of Hope was supposed to be a one-time event, but it seems like it's never ending due to the positive response that we've received over the years. Now, a few quick housekeeping items for tonight. We're going to have 3 speakers, a couple of short presentations. We're going to try to go through without a break just because of everything to get everybody home early tonight. The restrooms are located down the hall by the Manelli Center. If anyone needs it, feel free to just get up and go whenever you want. And due to the COVID restrictions or the COVID problems we're having, they're asking people to wear their masks, especially when they're out in the common areas greeting other people. A special thanks to St. Robert's for allowing this event to take place here at the church. Thank you to Catch Intelligence and the Flourish family for sponsoring this event, and to Dominic Marinello of Modern Yellow Creative Design Solutions for creating and maintaining our Night of Hope website. Lastly, a special thank you to Debbie Marcel for arranging the event tonight here at the church, all the volunteers that have assisted at the church, and to Drew Neneman, our musical director, for the beautiful songs that you're going to enjoy throughout the evening. Without all these special people, this night would not be possible. Now, to start off the evening, you're probably wondering, why am I up here being an MC? Debbie Marcel has done this for the last 7 years and done a wonderful job. Well, the answer is simple. Last year, Debbie Marcel and Teresa Kopitz voluntold me that I was doing this. You can blame them for this. I just do what these 2 women tell me to do. Last year was set to be my first time hosting this event, but unfortunately, tragedy struck our family December 7th of 2019. My niece Bethany's husband, Christopher Brewster, was killed in the line of duty while working for the Houston Police Department. He was a sergeant, 32 years old, and he was fatally shot while responding to a domestic violence call. After he was shot, Chris heroically radioed dispatch that he was shot and provided the suspect description and the direction of travel. Responding officers located the suspect blocks away as they approached the scene where Chris laid. Chris was alone when he was shot, and without his radio transmission, the suspect would never have been located so quickly. Now, we could talk police tactics or the complete disregard for human life in society today, but that's not what the Night of Hope is all about. The Night of Hope tells us how to make the worst days of our lives and make it better. It reminds us to look for the signs that God is there with us, even though we're dealing with a dark day, and how we can share these tragedies and signs with others so that they can deal with their issues. Now, a quick story about Sergeant Chris Brewster's funeral. After the funeral, it ended, family and friends gathered for a luncheon. Family members advised me that they wanted to visit the scene of the shooting to possibly get some closure. Police union representatives advised where the event took place and how to get there. We were on a time constraint because my son had to get to the airport, so Houston PD advised that they would provide an escort to make this happen. While driving a 15-passenger van, completely loaded with family, they are sharing a few pictures with you of the scene up there. While driving this 15-passenger van completely loaded with family, we had the pleasure of pursuing a marked police vehicle, lights and siren, down the interstate during Houston rush hour traffic. Now, while the family riding with me thought this was very exciting, I was in far more fear doing this pursuit than anything I've ever done as my job as an Omaha police officer. We made it safely there, but I hope to never have to recreate that scene again. Now, when we arrived at the scene, police officers blocked off the road so that we could get out of our vehicle, visit the scene, and grieve. The scene had a memorial of flowers, candles, and other dedications to Chris. We looked up and we received a great gift, a sign from God and from Chris that all was going to be well. Directly behind where Chris lost his life was a small house, surrounded by a wrought iron fence, protecting a beautiful courtyard of religious statues, flowers, and fruit trees. As the pictures show, and a family member commented, "It looks like we are at the gates of heaven." A great thought that was very refreshing at a tough time. But it doesn't stop there. We rang the doorbell located on the fence, and the resident stepped out to greet us. We explained who we were. He was very gracious in allowing us to see his magnificent garden and the yard that he had created. The resident explained that he was a very religious man. He supported the police, and he was heartbroken at what had happened to Chris in his front yard. He then looked at me and he said, "I am Gabriel. I am named after the archangel Gabriel." As I looked around at the beauty of the area, thought of how Gabriel was the caretaker of this memorial, I was then joined by neighbors from the neighboring houses. They came out to say a prayer with us at the site. I was reminded that God was there with Chris at the time of his death. He led him through the gates of heaven, and he was there with us at that time. That is what hope is all about. That is what we need and we long for. The thought that God is always with us, even in our darkest hour. Now, our first speaker tonight was scheduled to be Emily Peters. Emily was going to talk to us about her journey she has traveled after the death of her husband and two of her good friends after they were involved in a horrible automobile accident. Emily was a sole survivor, and she came to have a deeper understanding of the need for Jesus and the power of God's word. Unfortunately, Emily will be unable to speak to us tonight due to a family commitment that she just could not reschedule. She has recorded her speech, and we will be posting it onto the Night of Hope website, which is nightofhopeomaha.com. So the first story we have that's going to be shared with you from up here tonight, other than my little spiel, is from Chelsea Dembinski. Chelsea is going to share her family story of caring for her father, who battled ALS until his death in January of 2019. Chelsea?
Hello, my name is Chelsea Dembinski. I'm here from Omaha, Nebraska, born and raised. I don't really feel like I deserve to be up here giving an inspirational story. I feel like my life is just like anybody else's. I was born and raised here in Omaha, Nebraska. Graduated from Miller North. My mom and dad, Kurt, were married high school sweethearts. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, lived just, your typical normal life. Graduated just down the street and went away to college. That didn't really work out for me, a little bit too much freedom. So I moved back home to Omaha and got a job to make a little bit of money at this really great store. You might have heard of it, it's Menards. Being a cashier. My girlfriend and I applied there because cute boys work at hardware stores. So it worked out for me because I met my husband there. We started dating and a little quickly got pregnant with our first child at the rightful age of 19. Just to make things more interesting, he was actually shipping off to Iraq to fight with the Marine Corps in the Iraq War just a few months later. So I was 20 years old, pregnant with our first baby as he was shipping off, and by my side were my mom and my dad and my brother and sister. I had Kale, our oldest, in 2005 after a very long day of delivery. My husband's 6'8", so you can imagine our child is also rather large. Anyways, he came home in April of 2005, thankfully very safe and sound and in one piece. We got married that following September and moved to North Carolina. Literally 7 days after our wedding, we packed up everything we owned, which really wasn't a lot because we were babies, and we moved halfway across the country where he was active duty in the Marine Corps. We struggled our first year being far away, learning to know each other and how to be parents, and military life was hard. We didn't know anybody there. We had no friends or family. The closest family I had was my great aunts in West Virginia, so that was really all that I had. Anyways, we established our life there. We had our second child, Carly, in 2007. And we're making many friends. In the military, it's great because everybody's young and has lots of kids and doesn't know anybody. So you make just the best family that's all chosen. And we really enjoyed it. We decided it was going to be kind of our lifelong career to travel the United States or go abroad, and Brian was going to make that his mission. Well, that few months after we had Carly, we got the devastating news that my dad, at the age of 45, was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS, which I'm sure you had all seen the Ice Bucket Challenge on Facebook and know what ALS is. Well, in 2007, we didn't know. I mean, I had never heard what Lou Gehrig's disease was or ALS. I didn't know what it entailed or what life was ahead of us. All we knew was that it was devastating. The average lifespan for somebody with ALS is 2 to 5 years. So my husband lost his dad at a very young age, so he gave up his career so that we could move home and I could be with my family. He applied to the Omaha Police Department, which is why I'm here, because Jeff is my husband's boss, so no pressure, right? And we moved home, and he got on the police department quick. They wanted him to start in June, but he couldn't start till December. So we came home. We had just had our third baby, Casey. Yeah, 3 kids by 24. We were really busy, and it was a great time. But we moved back home into a tiny little house, and he started his police career. And about a year later, we moved in with my parents. They had just bought their, I'm saying the word a lot, I'm sorry. I don't do this often, so you're going to have to bear with me. We moved in with my parents. My sister lived there as well, my mom's mom. So it was a full house. But it's what my dad needed. It's what my kids needed. They were the only grandkids at the time. And my dad was a great dad, but if anything, he was a really good grandpa. Our oldest and him had a bond that can't be described. When my dad was healthy and Cale was younger, as soon as my dad would come home, he would pick Cale up and put him on his lap, and he would just coo and caw at him for an hour. And my dad just thought it was the best thing. He would always take him outside, get him butt naked, and give him the hose. He just thought that was hilarious. He loved to take him outside and do yard work. So it was very important for us to be in the house with him. I don't know if you all are really actually familiar with what ALS does, but the disease kills your muscles, basically. The neurons that are sending the message to your muscles to move are dying, so your muscles then atrophy. So slowly my dad started to lose his speech, which is hard. You don't realize how much you're going to miss somebody's voice until it's not there. He then slowly started to lose, his neck muscles, and then it just kind of trickled down to where he would lose his loss of his arms. He battled for a very long time. He was diagnosed in 2007, and the last few years of his life were very challenging. Thankfully, I was very fortunate that my husband worked and I was able to stay home, and I became, along with my mom and the help of my brother and sister who could help when they needed to, his full-time caregiver. We didn't really know what that was going to entail, nor did we know what his life was going to be like until it just kind of happened. Once he started to he was the most stubborn man, so even though he didn't have any arms or the use of his arms, he still tried to do everything he could with his arms. And when he couldn't, he resulted in using his feet. He typed with his toe. He built a retaining wall with his toes and his feet. He was featured on John Nicely's Nicely Done episode for how resilient he was and not giving up. But when he started to lose the loss of those limbs, we became those people for him. He lost the ability to taste or to eat, but being as stubborn as he would still try. Even water would cause him to choke. There was an incident where Brian had to rush down the stairs once and perform the Heimlich on him because he wouldn't give up and was choking on food. Probably the 100th time, but he didn't care. He was going to eat and enjoy his food, especially ice cream, because that was his favorite. He loved sweets. But anyways, as he kind of deteriorated, my role as his caregiver really intensified, especially when he started to lose the loss of his legs, which entailed lifting him and transferring to and from his chair, to and from the bathroom, or just putting him in bed and shifting him. He had a button that we did his feedings through. I learned how to do that very quickly. He also had a machine that helped him breathe at night that I also learned how to take care of. So every day we just got a little bit sicker and sicker, a little bit harder and harder on him, on all of us. But through it all, he smiled every single day. He was probably the easiest patient, and I use the word patient, but he was somebody I cared for every day. Our kids helped. My husband was amazing and helped. Working the hours that he works and then having 3 children and caring for my dad was very challenging, but I'm so thankful I was able to be there. We just lost him in January of 2019. My mom and my husband both worked that whole weekend of New Year's Eve, so it was just me and my dad home, and we did what he liked to do usually after Christmas or holiday or long week. Is he liked if I gave him some sleeping pills and he slept all day. So it was very bonding. No, actually we spent the weekend just watching college football, which was what he loved. And he got pretty sick over the next couple days, and it was very hard, and he was afraid to leave my mom and us kids, but we knew it was time. So we had a pastor came over and met with him and thought it could be a week. I mean, we had been here before. We had been told multiple times that my dad was going to not make it through the night. He had lived 12 years. We were told he only had 2 to 5. So we were all kind of in denial that this could be it. But we woke up on January 3rd, and he had passed away in his sleep. Towards the end of his life, he could tell that caring for him was wearing on me. My mom, my husband could all tell. I think everybody could tell. I was tired. I was emotionally drained, mentally, physically, in every way that you could think of. I was not able to really leave unless there was a caregiver at house because nobody could really lift him. My mom was just not big enough. Kale, our oldest, would lift him when he was there, but that's a lot of pressure on a 13-year-old. So his care, my days revolved from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, helping take care of my dad. We would have a caregiver come in the house sometimes, but it's very expensive and it's just not very practical and not exactly what he wanted. He liked having me there. So towards the end of his life, it really wore on me, and he and my mom and Brian all really wanted me to start taking care of myself. So he encouraged me to join a gym. So 2 years ago on Friday, I joined Orange Theory Fitness and have been really working hard on moving because he can't, staying positive because that's what he would have wanted. I tried to teach our kids and the people around me that life is short, not to stress over the small things because really in the end, they don't matter. To eat the food you want to eat because someday you just might not be able to. Say the things you want to say, get the tattoo you want to get. Just go out and live your life. Given the chance again, I would do everything that I did now, knowing how hard it was and how much suffering we watched with him, but I'll never be able to get those years back, so I cherish them very much. And that's why I don't really feel like I deserve to be up here speaking, because I feel like if anyone was given the opportunity to stay home and take care of their parent, they would. At the end of the day, it was an honor, and I'm so blessed that I was able to have him as a dad and to be here and share my short little story with you guys. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Chelsea. As I sat there listening to Chelsea's speech, I had some thoughts which I think are pretty evident. Chelsea downplayed this quite a bit, saying that it's no big deal, I don't deserve to be up here. You could not be further from the truth. You have a husband who is going to make a career serving our country, and he had to sacrifice to come home so that you could take care of your father. What a blessing that is to you and your mother, that you were able to do that and be there with them. And that's what hope is all about. That's what our life is all about. It isn't the big houses or the cars. It's being able to share things like this every day. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Our next speaker is Angela Kaiser. Angela is going to share her decade-long battle with recurring cancer.
Good evening. I'm Angela Kaiser, and I grew up here in Omaha as well. And I'm also like Chelsea, I went to Millard North, and then to UNO. My parents are here, Jeff and Patty Selsley. And then I am sandwiched between a sister and a brother, Amanda and Joseph, who are also here. So as a middle child, this sort of attention is unusual, right, guys? At UNO, I met a boy from a small town in central Nebraska named Neil, and he quickly won my heart, and we got married. And then he moved this Omaha girl to that small town called Kennesaw. It's about 900 people. And there we have, we're parents to actually 9 children. We have 5 saints in heaven, and then 4 here with us, 3 daughters and a son. And my husband and kids are not here tonight because they're filming their Christmas concert at school tomorrow, so they're tuning in. So I'd like to say hi to them and thank them for watching and being here in spirit. So my story begins in 2008. My oldest daughter, Helen, is born that year in June. And afterward, I go to my doctor for the normal 6-week postpartum visit, and my doctor feels my neck and feels a lump. She says that it's common after pregnancy to have lumps on your thyroid, but sends me for blood work, which shows that my thyroid levels are off a little bit, and that maybe I should go see a specialist or an endocrinologist. The endocrinologist I go to also reassures me that it's normal after pregnancy to have a lump and to have these fluctuations, and diagnoses me with postpartum thyroiditis and to come back in 6 months. The next appointment was the same story. Lump, blood work's a little off, but it should be normal, come back in 6 months. So the day we celebrate Helen's first birthday is also the day we find out we're expecting child number 2. And my next thyroid checkup is just a couple weeks later. So at this appointment, my endocrinologist seems a little bit more concerned because thyroid levels being off while pregnant isn't great. So she prescribes medication, and she also feels like the lump has grown. And so she suggests doing an ultrasound. So I go to the ultrasound, and they discover that the lump is a couple centimeters large, which is unusual. But it's also still pretty common for women my age to have these nodules on your thyroid. But because of the size, they suggest I go get a biopsy. So as I'm being prepped for the biopsy, all the staff and nurses attending me reassure me that 90% of these nodules are always benign, that it's rarely cancer. So a few days later, on September 1st, 2009, I got the call from my endocrinologist that the biopsy results were back. It's thyroid cancer. I'm now 14 weeks pregnant, and I'm told I have cancer. Now, as I continue to tell my story, I will say I a lot, but I want to be clear that it wasn't just I who got cancer, but we. Because when you're married, your spouse might not be the one to get the official diagnosis, but they are just as much affected and a part of the journey as the patient. So my husband's life was changed that day along with mine, and he is the biggest earthly reason I am able to be here to share this. So thank you, Neil. The treatment, I am told, is the surgical removal of my entire thyroid. And after consulting several doctors, we are told that the window of pregnancy that I'm in at the moment is considered the safest to do a surgery. So with much trepidation, we decide to move forward with the surgery, pleading for the protection of my child I am carrying, yet knowing it's the right decision to keep me healthy for the daughter in front of me who also needs a mom. It's now officially one of those moments where your faith is tested, where Jesus, who is always beckoning us to trust him with our entire lives, permits suffering so we can experience the beauty and fruit of that trust. My name gets on every prayer list my family and friends are connected with, and there is concrete strength there, a strength I did not possess before or on my own, but it's there that this network of prayer and petition charges me with. These connections reach all the way to Rome, where now Bishop Hanafelt is a priest studying there, and he hears about what we're facing, and he sends me these words. He said, "Angela, the finest gift you can give our Lord is your trust. So trust the Lord, not simply that everything will be okay, but rather that you will be able to give yourself over to him in complete abandonment." Those words were absolute life to me in that moment. The worry, anxiety, stress, confusion, and overwhelm of facing cancer surgery while pregnant weighed heavily. But this clarity, this gift that was given to me through a faithful priest, eased my mind and heart as I prepared for surgery. So much so that the morning of the operation, the doctors noted my calmness and could forego a lot of the medications typically given to patients before anesthesia. The less, the better, to protect my unborn son. That surgery went well, and afterward I began to wake up in post-op, and I can remember muttering, "My baby," and the post-op nurse comes over with the Doppler to find the baby's heartbeat. See, she searches and searches, and it felt like forever, but pretty soon I hear it, a healthy heartbeat. My baby is okay. The results from surgery show some extension from the original cancerous nodule. So after delivery, I'm told I'll need to undergo radioactive iodine treatment. It's not great news, but I can't do anything until after the baby is born, so I just try to focus on the excitement of welcoming another child into the world. So on March 3rd, 2010, after a mere 45 minutes at the hospital, we welcomed our son Leo at a very healthy 10 pounds. This period of time is a gift from God. I am not a cancer patient in these moments, but a mom who has just been entrusted with another soul to nurture. And for 2 brief months, we get to just live and find our way as now a family of 4. But the second part of my cancer treatment looms, and as I return to my endocrinologist, she performs another ultrasound and takes blood work. The ultrasound shows additional tumors on the lymph nodes in my neck. Instead of doing radiation, I will need another surgery first, and one sooner rather than later to prevent more spread. At 2 months postpartum, I am prepping for another surgery and a radiation treatment. It was now that I felt like cancer was taking away things that was crossing the line. I had gone through surgery already. I had been dealt my cancer card and had endured it, and I should be done. And now the fact that it was back and messing with moments of my life that I felt should be off limits as a new mom, I was getting a little bitter. But then I gazed upon my now 2 beautiful children, And although I wouldn't necessarily have ever picked the time of becoming a new mom to undergo a major health crisis, I was aware that it was precisely this moment that gave me the strength and distraction to meet this cancer treatment courageously. Their unconditional love and reliance upon me gave me a strength that would not have been possible without them. It was in this moment that I knew I wasn't going to let cancer make me bitter, but make me better. God wasn't doing this to me. He was allowing this to shape me to become a better wife, mother, and friend, so I could feel his love and protection in an unimaginable way. That second surgery went well, and the radiation treatment a month later went as expected. It included 10 days of isolation from my family. My doctors monitored my lab work and did scans, but all was looking as it should. 4 months later, at one of my follow-up appointments, my scans and blood work revealed more tumors in my neck. It's another recurrence of thyroid cancer, and I need a third surgery. This surgery goes well, but I can't celebrate right away because I don't know if they were able to get all the cancer or not. After my hospital stay, I'm back at home alone since I can't lift my kids at this point. I remember feeling defeated. I knew God was also going to use this hurdle for my good, but I couldn't see how. I felt so sore, weak, and drained, and I couldn't imagine being able to be a normal wife or a mother and be the woman those two roles required me to be. I was full of anxiety for the future. Why does the cancer keep coming back? Was the rest of our lives going to center around surgeries, treatments, and isolation? I could not see my future without cancer being the leading role. It had now been 18 months of bad news and worst-case scenarios, and I was losing hope. I received the call from my surgeon to give me the pathology report from this latest surgery. The margins were clear. This meant that all the cancer was removed and no more treatment was necessary. It was the first good news I had received since this journey began. I hung up the phone and I looked around my living room, and the colors around me were more vibrant. My whole environment looked different, and I was brought to tears as the one thing I was most looking forward to in that moment that I didn't know if I'd ever feel well enough to do was take my daughter to her first movie. Before this journey, I would have let that simple experience pass by without a thought. It would have felt mundane or just normal. But now it was this mundanity that God was showing me that life and love live. It's those small, simple moments of time together that create relationships that make your life. So 5 months after this, it's now spring of 2011, at one of my checkups, we hear the all too familiar news. My scan has revealed more tumors. My thyroid cancer has returned for a third time. Insert a lot of expletives at this point. At least that was our first reaction. But God had more to show me. You see, when I was first diagnosed, I started telling everyone about the party we would have when I was declared cancer-free. It was a way, I think, of deflecting the attention off of how horrible cancer is, and a way to ease how uncomfortable it can be to talk to someone about their cancer. So at this point, I had been waiting almost 2 years for the words cancer-free and to celebrate with this big party, yet there's still no end in sight. God began to show me the error of my thinking. I learned that there isn't a day God wants us to wait for to celebrate. He wants us to celebrate now, celebrate every day that we are here. And this is true whether we're facing cancer or not. Each day we are here is a day to celebrate. It's a day we get to know, love, and serve God. I was living for a future that isn't necessarily promised for anyone. Each victory, each day, each moment should be celebrated. So these tumors that have now appeared are small. In fact, so small that surgery is not ideal, yet they are too large for radiation. So my doctors recommend watching and waiting before doing any sort of intervention or treatment. A year goes by, and we are still just watching and monitoring the tumors in my neck. My oldest, Helen, is now almost 5, and my son, Leo, is almost 3. We always wanted more children, but having cancer seemed like a grave enough reason to delay that. We follow the Catholic Church's teaching on this subject, and I'm thankful my doctors did not force any other view on us, but there was always part of me that felt irresponsible, like we were leaving too much to chance. So now, in the midst of this watching what we know are cancerous tumors, we find out we're pregnant. I am part excited, but partly terrified. I feared I would be facing another postpartum nightmare like with my son, Leo. I feared that maybe my body wasn't up for the demands of pregnancy. I was afraid that maybe the pregnancy would make the tumors grow. I worried about what people might think about us getting pregnant while we knew I still had cancer. I was months into the pregnancy and was still having trouble letting myself get excited because I didn't want to be let down with more cancer disappointment or feel like we had made a mistake by getting pregnant. I was so short-sighted. Those fears seem so silly now because I should have known God's protection was always with me, and a child is never a mistake. Throughout that pregnancy, my tumors never grew. And come time to deliver our 3rd child, Daphne, I still didn't have to think about cancer treatment because things were stable. Our obedience and openness to children gave us a daughter who connects our family to God and heaven. That is the subject of a whole nother talk someday. I can't believe we almost let fear take that from us. Daphne is born, and each cancer checkup keeps revealing the same tumors, but they are stable. Nothing is growing. We are then blessed with a 4th child, another daughter, Magdalene, who we welcome in January of 2015. In October of 2016, my tumors started showing some growth. So we decided it's finally time to do surgery to remove the areas that we have been monitoring for now almost 5 years. As I prepare for this 4th surgery, I am lifted up with people all around me, again, who are praying for me. However, I'm realizing I am not praying for my own healing. I had thought about this before, but usually brushed it off by telling myself that God had bigger things to worry about than prayers for my own recovery. It seems selfish to pray for yourself. But I knew I was beloved. I knew God looked upon me like a daughter, and so of course he wanted to hear from me and felt my prayers were important. When I really thought about it, I was neglecting praying for my own healing because I didn't want to be disappointed if I wasn't healed. Because there had been so much disappointment along the way, and I couldn't bear the thought of being disappointed with God. And with this realization, I knew that deep down, I wasn't trusting God. Because if I was trusting him, I wouldn't be afraid to pray to be cured. The words of Bishop Hannafelt from 7 years before echoed in my mind. The greatest gift you can give our Lord is your trust. So finally, I begin to pray for my own healing, to surrender and rest in complete trust of God. This 4th surgery, the surgeon was able to remove all the tumors, including one that had not been on any scan or test from the past 5 years. God guided my surgeon that day. There's no other way to explain it. Even my surgeon would say there was a divine presence that led him to the area no one knew that I had the last remaining cancer. That surgery was now over 3 years ago, and I have yet to have any tumors grow back. As I look back on these trials, I see with perfect clarity why we went through it, why any of us go through suffering. Imagine a father with his son, and the son is very sick with pneumonia. So the dad takes his boy into the doctor. The doctor says he needs a shot of antibiotics in order to get better. The dad knows his son isn't going to like it, and it will hurt, but the dad tells the doctor to do it anyway. The son looks at his dad and wonders why someone he trusts would let something that hurts him happen to him. So the dad holds his son down so the doctor can give him a shot because he knows it will make him better. This is just like our Heavenly Father. There are times that he allows bad things to happen because in his ultimate wisdom, he knows it can make us better. But he is always right there, holding us, just like the father in the story, to help us through the bad time. This is my story. Many awful trials were thrown at us, but I was never abandoned. I was held and comforted by so many people, as well as by my Heavenly Father. I am now better than I was and grateful for all of it. And each day is such a gift, a call to trust and surrender my will completely to God and to celebrate even the littlest moments. Today, I'm still monitored for thyroid cancer because my blood work does continue to show microscopic disease, but it is stable. I'm told I'll probably never hear the words cancer-free or cured, but I'm okay with that. I have learned enough now to trust God and to not let the fear of tomorrow rule over me. It's really a gift to live with the reality that this life is short, and we should spend our time celebrating and loving what is right in front of us, and also preparing for our eternity with God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. As I did before, I made a few reflections after Chelsea gave her speech, and I am pretty much speechless after yours with the challenges you had to go through over the past 10 years. And your positive outlook on life is incredible. I always try to pick out something when someone says something, and I loved your line, I don't want to be bitter, I want to be better. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't do in life. They just want to get angry, and what a testament to faith and hope that you had there. So thank you very much. Now, the last big story to share this evening is a story of Keith Thompson. Keith's a good friend of mine and a fellow Omaha police officer. As you will hear, Keith was injured in the line of duty, suffering paralysis and a brain injury. Due to this brain injury, Keith's speech can be difficult at times to understand, and due to this, he has honored me by allowing me to tell you his story about hope. Keith Thompson's an Omaha native and a graduate of Bryan High School. Keith joined the Army straight out of high school and spent 3 years serving our country at Fort Hood Army Base in Texas and also in Korea. His career in the Army as a military policeman provided him with the passion for community service and led him to a career in law enforcement. After leaving the Army, he earned an associate's degree in law enforcement from Metro Tech, and at age 27, Keith was selected to join Class 191 with the Omaha Police Department. Keith was not only chosen to join the class, he was given the lowest serial number in our class, serial number 1219. This signifies that out of over 900 applicants, Keith was the most qualified applicant that made it through the entire process. Keith completed the 21-week academy, 15-week field training process with absolutely zero trouble. He was a friendly, outgoing individual with a passion for community service. He was a mature, confident, and well-respected officer that other officers wanted to work with. He was a valued member of all of his crews, and he served on, and officers wanted him on his crew. Now, police work can be very dangerous and demanding. Different parts of town can be safer and slower paced than others. Most officers move around the city to different assignments so that they can deal with different types of problems, levels of danger, and types of calls. Keith was an anomaly. His 15 weeks of field training and every assignment he had up to the day of his injury were in the most dangerous and busiest hours in the city. He made tons of arrests, and he was working on August 20th, 1995, when a member of his crew, Jimmy Wilson Jr., was shot and killed in the line of duty. Keith was undeterred. He was a police officer through thick and thin. Keith refused to bid an easier precinct and take it easy. He would use his abilities where it was needed most. Now, Keith worked hard as an officer, and he had a beautiful family and a career he loved. He was living the dream. On August 28th, 1996, Keith's life and dream took a terrible turn. Keith, along with his partner, Mark Negretti, were working the evening shift when fellow officers began a pursuit of a stolen vehicle. Keith was driving, and he and Mark drove to the area to assist. They were near the area where the car was last seen when suddenly the stolen vehicle sped out of a small alley and T-boned their cruiser just behind the driver's door and forced them across the street into a tree. Luckily, Mark was not seriously injured in the crash. Keith was not so lucky. He was trapped in the vehicle, and it took emergency personnel nearly an hour to remove him from the wreckage to provide complete medical care. Keith told me he was blessed that night because the squad that was dispatched to his accident had a special passenger with them. A local trauma surgeon was on the squad doing a ride-along that night for some reason. The surgeon was able to provide important information to start medical process on him while he was still inside the vehicle. Keith told me this was the first of many blessings that he would have throughout his journey. Now, after he was extricated from the vehicle, Keith was taken to the hospital and rushed immediately into surgery. He had a ruptured aorta, and he was given 8 pints of blood during that one simple surgery. The blood supply to his extremities at his T6 vertebrae needed to be cut off in order to repair the aorta. Failure to do so would cause death immediately. Unfortunately, due to the time his lower body went without oxygenated blood, he was paralyzed below the T6 vertebrae. Keith was in a coma for 20 days, and he spent 2 months at the Old St. Joe Hospital. He was then moved to Emmanuel Rehab and stayed there undergoing rehab until the day after Christmas, when he was allowed to go home. So this process from accident, surgery, rehab to home is an indication of who Keith is. From a near death to going home in less than 4 months, that is incredible progress. Some would say this is another miracle. Now, Keith was lucky to be alive and also have a great support system at home. We've heard about that tonight with the other 2 speakers. His wife, Ann, became his full-time caregiver while she was also raising their son, Ryan, who was just 9 months old on the day of the accident. Ann was instrumental in Keith's recovery, and his recovery would have been much different without her strength and support. Keith refused to give up and let his injury limit what he could accomplish. Keith rehabbed with the desire and the attitude that he would someday walk again. On September 25th, 1997, Keith returned to work as a police officer. Keith was assigned to the Captain's Aid Squad, where he would perform administrative duties, answer phone calls for service from citizens, and take crime reports over the phone. His slower speech cadence and slurred speech made this difficult for him, but he persisted. 24 years after his injury, Keith continues to work full-time, serving the citizens of Omaha as a police officer. And in less than 6 months, he will retire after serving the citizens of Omaha for over 30 years. An incredible testament to what this man is all about. Now, the idea that Keith survived and continues to work today is a great story. But let's discuss a few more miracles that Keith was a part of. In 1995, actor Christopher Reeves, aka Superman, was paralyzed in a horse riding accident. After Keith was injured, Christopher Reeves became a hero and an inspiration to Keith. He followed his progress, and at the end of 1997, Keith heard of some treatment that Christopher Reeves was receiving at the University of Washington Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. It was discovered by the hospital that Christopher Reeves' type of injury might allow him a chance of walking again. Keith went there for a consultation, and they advised Keith that he had suffered an incomplete paralyzation during the accident. This meant his spinal cord was not severed, but it was actually deadened. There was a chance that someday, If medical technology advanced far enough, maybe the lower half of Keith's body could be brought back to life. Maybe he could walk again. Now, Keith took this to heart. He's a very dedicated man. He decided he would work out consistently, waiting for a technology that does not exist to fix him later. He worked hard every day, and he continued living his life, hoping for a miracle. More miracles followed. In July of 2000, Keith and Ann were blessed with the birth of twin sons, Reed and Quinn. As time passed, Keith began to get angry, and he found it tough to control his emotions. Ann asked Keith to get some counseling, but he refused. That's not what tough cops do. His anger made it very difficult on the family, and unfortunately, this led to Keith and Ann's divorce in 2005. After the divorce, Keith finally decided, maybe I need some counseling. He went and saw a counselor, and he was diagnosed with PTSD due to the accident. The problem was diagnosed, and surely it was a contributing factor to his behavior in his family. Now, it was a tough time for the family, but Keith had progressed far enough physically, he was able to care for himself while still trying to be a good dad. He continued working with the police department, rehabbing, and hoping for that miracle cure. Fast forward to a few years ago. Keith was told by a police officer, Officer Kelly Nouns, that God had spoken to her. She told Keith, God told me you are going to walk again. At about the same time, my daughter Courtney was working at the Morgridge Institute for Research in Madison, Wisconsin. Courtney sent me an article detailing a new technology that was being developed that might help paralyzed individuals walk again using an exoskeleton. It sounded like a great device, but still seemed kind of science fiction-like. The machine would allow an individual to wear the device, use existing working muscles to control it, and the individual would be able to walk again using the device. Keith read it. He hoped it was possible, but he wasn't convinced that it could ever happen. Then, shortly after that, his doctor shared this exact same story of the exoskeleton with Keith, and he asked him if he wanted to give it a try. Of course, Keith, he agreed, and he kept working to make it happen. Then, the same officer who had told him the story of how God had told her that he would walk again shared another story with Keith. She had a dream that they were talking, and Keith was sitting in his wheelchair. Their conversation ended, and Kelly stood up to leave. Keith stood up, walked her to the door, and opened it for her. Suddenly, all of these things added together meant that this could happen. It should happen, and it would happen. Keith kept pressing the exoskeleton issue with his doctors, and soon a device was brought to Emmanuel Rehab for him to examine. Keith was an ideal candidate for the device. But of course, Keith had a few more obstacles in the way. First, the cost was nearly $100,000 for the machine. The city of Omaha and Workman's Comp discussed it and eventually agreed to make the purchase. But before that could happen, Keith, he was too heavy. He's a very large man, very strong man. He was too heavy for the biggest machine that they had. They told him, you have to lose 10 pounds just to reach that minimum weight, or the maximum weight, that is. Keith took on the challenge and did as he always does. He blew past that 10-pound goal. Now, for all of us to lose 10 pounds is almost an impossibility, at least it seems like in my body. Try being paralyzed and lose that same 10 pounds. Keith took on the challenge, blew past the 10 pounds, lost an astonishing 37 pounds to make himself prepared for this event. Now, in August of this year, Keith's exoskeleton was delivered. In order for Keith to use the device, he needs the assistance of 2 therapists. I'm proud to say Keith's therapists are here with us tonight. Crystal and Lindsay, can you please stand up so you can be acknowledged for all your hard work making this miracle happen? Keith says you work him hard, and he can't thank you enough for making his dream come true. Keith, Crystal, and Lindsay work through 45-minute sessions a couple times a week. The process is slow, but Keith is making it happen. Now, Keith's story is truly amazing. Keith should have died the night of this accident. He could have given up during 24 years of rehabilitation, or he could have left the police job on a disability. He did none of these things. He refused to give up. In 1996, when Keith was injured, the idea of an exoskeleton might be found in a science fiction movie or read about in a comic book. Ask yourself, what kind of person stays in the shape that Keith has? Work out daily to prepare yourself for a technology that does not exist, and continue this process for 24 years. That person is Keith Thompson. He's a friend of mine. He's a hero, and he's a true inspiration. Now, Keith is not able to walk here tonight as he is still mastering the exoskeleton. But I wanted to share with you all a video of what hope is. Keith has hoped for a miracle to walk for 24 years. And here is what faith, hard work, perseverance, the strength of God, and goodness can do. If you want to look at the videos, hopefully we can get this cranked up. He waited 24 years for it. We can wait a little bit to see it, don't you think? As you can see, the picture there is his crumpled car, and I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it up. It's coming. Okay. I do have to say, when Keith shared this with me before. Oh, it's over there? Okay. There it is. That's Keith with his therapist. It's absolutely incredible when you think about it that when he got hurt, this didn't exist. He worked out, kept himself strong. He drives that machine with basically his hips, and tells it what to do. It takes incredible strength, and incredible fortitude, and a belief in God. Well, they help out a little bit, but I'm going to give you all the credit tonight. They already got their little bit of light here. So, before we end here, I would like to end with this. When you have a challenge and you want to give up, remember this story. If after learning of Keith's 24 years of working, believing, and hoping isn't enough to inspire you, just give him a call. His words about never giving up will surely get you back on track. Keith, thank you for letting me tell your story. You're an inspiration to all of us, and you're our hero. Now, I've told you Keith's story, and now he'd like to share a few words, but first, one more person would like to come up and say a few words. Omaha Police Officer Connie Garrow, my sister-in-law, a classmate from our Police Academy class, 191, would like to say a few words.
Thank you. As Jeff said, and you guys saw, that Keith is a very hard worker and works out consistently. His physical fitness had always remained a part of his life before the accident, during the accident. So I do have to say this little bit. When Keith had his accident, and first of all, Keith and I had worked out religiously at Gold's Gym. We were there sometimes twice a day, every day, working out, doing all sorts of exercises, trying to keep in shape. In fact, people thought we were going to be on the SWAT team and whatever, because we did all these pull-ups, whatever. People weren't used to seeing girls do a lot of pull-ups and push-ups and stuff. Anyway, so Keith had his accident, and I was working warrants at the time. Not what Jeff does. I was little guy, misdemeanor warrants. He's felony fugitive and stuff. Anyway, so I was working warrants, and I was with my partner, and I was really nervous to see Keith. He was at Emmanuel at the time, and I was told he wasn't going to remember anybody, he wasn't going to remember people's names, and, all these injuries, whatever, and us, Connie, he's not even going to remember who you are. So I remember going into the hospital room, and so Keith was in bed, and I'm just kind of, putting back the curtains and walking into his room, and all of a sudden he looks over, and he's able to move a little bit of his arm, and he puts his arm out. Connie, why did you wait so long to see me? Are you still doing your ab workout? that is Keith for you. So, long story short here, my very first half marathon, 13.1 miles, 2009 was inspiration for me because hated running, absolutely, but knowing how Keith worked out, regardless of his injuries, inspired me to, okay, I have to at least try this. So I did my first half marathon, and I had wrote something to him called 13 Miles of Inspiration. A lot of us, I'm sure, have run. We've probably done 5Ks, half marathons, endurance runs. A lot of my runner friends are here that would have done 50 milers, 100 milers, and then some. We run, and a lot of people that complete these runs receive medals. Medals remind us of a lot of the support that we get from our family and friends. In fact, one time when I was trying to get my half marathon under 2 hours, Keith drove his van to Lincoln, waited for hours with my sister Mary in cold weather, in the rain, refused to put any coat on. And because it took me so long, he waited for hours and for me to finish this race, and that was genuine support on his part. Medals also remind us of the hard work we put into something. It reminds us of the preparation, the sweat, the pulled muscles, the strength we need. It reminds us to keep going and follow through with our goals. It took a great deal of training and perseverance, and I know strength and sweat, and a lot of probably hurt muscles for Keith, for you to finish and for you to accomplish this feat of walking. So Keith, you deserve a medal, just like all of us deserve medals when we complete our runs. So it's a handmade medal, I'm sorry, but it is a medal for you, and I truly appreciate all your inspiration.
Thank you, Connie. Well, Keith, you allowed me to speak for you. I'm fresh out of words, and I'm fresh out of other speakers, so the floor is yours. Keith would like to say a few words. Check, check. Let's turn around and you can see up prettier.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out here and seeing us. And Chelsea and Angela, I can't follow up with you. You're too good. I want to thank Teresa Kopetz for starting this, St. Roberts for hosting this, and Reggie Cunningham, Jeff Kopetz, for doing this. That's still fun. Jeff, you know who Reggie is, right? I was told that Jeff was going to talk, and he talked to me about it, and I loved that he was going to talk for me, because it's difficult for me to talk. But then a lot of people told me I should talk. I should say a few words. Well, I went to therapy the other day, and I was asking Lindsay and Crystal, what should I say? And one of the two best therapists at Emmanuel said, what do you think of hope? What does hope mean to you? And that was the correct thing to say. Because hope, I have two different meanings for hope. One of them is, I hope you have a nice day. I hope you have a great vacation. I hope you have a great Christmas. And mine today was, I hope that Lindsay doesn't wear those same shoes, but she wore them. But then there's the other hope where when you hope and pray to God, which I do every day. I hope and pray every day for my three boys and my grandson, Ryan, Quinn, Reed, and Finley. I pray that they're safe, healthy, and they get through each day. And I know that God was with me that night on August 28th, 96, because, hold on, you don't want to take a drink. Like a politician. But I was told that I had a 5% chance of living through that crash. And I know God was there because he had a trauma doctor doing right along on the squad. And I've been blessed so many times over the years. You know, like Jeff said, Quinn was only 9 months old on the day I was hurt. And then I was blessed with Quinn Reed. And then Finley, my grandson, I keep getting blessed. Then I'm blessed even more with being able to walk again in therapy with Lindsay and Crystal. And I'm losing my train of thought. I know that a lot of people take things for granted. Jeff was mentioning Christopher Reeve. When I heard about Christopher Reeve getting hurt, of course I was saddened about it, but I didn't think much more about it. I know we take a lot of things for granted in life. I did before I got hurt. You know, take things for granted, and I still do sometimes. I mean, like, we take advantage of just the simple things of walking and everything like that. But after I got hurt, I started thinking about what I took for granted before. And I still did. I mean, I have to stop and remind myself that I might not be able to walk, but I can move my arms. I can drive to therapy, do therapy. I can get a drink of water like I just did. But then I go to therapy and I see quads who can't even get a drink of water. And that reminds me that it could be worse. And my head injury could have been a lot worse. I could not know what I was doing right, you know. Still, it took a lot of years. I was still suffering from head injury. That's what led to my divorce a lot. We just didn't get along anymore, and she asked me to leave. And the biggest problem there was leaving my kids. But we all, like I said, we all take things for granted, and that's difficult. But I hope me saying that helps you people out for not taking things for granted. Like me going 24 years and finally being able to walk again. God told me that there's a reason why you're doing this. Continue to train yourself and get ready for it. And I was ready for it. I mean, I'm not ready every day because Tuesday was not that great, was it? My therapy, I was sitting and standing good. My balance was good, standing there. But the walking wasn't the best. And then as Lindsay and Crystal, they're so good at what they do, they just said, Keith, it's just your learning experience for the next time you walk. I mean, it's a bad time then, but the next one's going to be better. Actually, the film you saw was my second day of walking in that thing. I mean, now I do a little bit slower, more controlled, and trying to take better steps. And Lindsay or Chris are always saying, slow down, Keith. I'm sorry, I got to take another drink. I know it's Chelsea and Angela didn't have to drink. But no, I want to thank God first. I want to thank St. Robert's for hosting this. I want to thank Teresa Kopetz for thinking of Night of Hope. And again, Richard Cunningham, I'm really thank you for doing this.
Well, thanks, Keith, for giving us that nice talk there at the end. If you made fun of me, but that's all right. I don't look as much like Richie Cunningham as I used to, but it is incredible when you think of Keith. When I get a cold and it lasts a couple weeks, I feel sorry for myself and I want to give up. The man's been doing it for a couple of decades, so it's an incredible thing. So this night was full of inspirational stories of hope, faith, and perseverance. Last year's Night of Hope included a story presented by Pat Kiscone, a St. Robert's parishioner who discussed her battle with metastatic cancer. When Pat was asked to speak, she thought about it, and she advised Teresa that I had a talk with God, and he wants me to tell my story. Her story inspired all who heard it, but unfortunately, she lost her battle with cancer less than 2 months after sharing her story at last night's Night of Hope. She's greatly missed by all who knew her. If you'd like to see Pat's speech or see any of the past Night of Hope events and speeches, you can access it on the Night of Hope website. It's just nightofhopeomaha.com. If you'd like to attend next year's event, for the 9th event, the date will be Thursday, December 9th. Hopefully you enjoyed the night, and you all have a safe, healthy, and fulfilling Christmas season. Thanks for coming.